So I want to make this video on a question that I get a lot, which is the buy versus build question. Now, I made a video on what is a platform engineer. I'll go ahead and link that somewhere. In that video, we talked about how there's a certain type of software engineer, essentially, that is called a platform engineer that focuses on building internal development platforms. And what I mean by an internal development platform is something that developers and development teams use to deploy their applications. There's a lot of software, there's a lot of security, there's a lot of things that have to go into getting an application from a developer's machine all the way into a production environment. And there are engineers that are specifically focused on creating the systems that allow that to happen. So when you're going through the process of making a platform, you end up asking this question: should I buy tools, software products that make it easier to build this platform? Should I use pre-existing tools that are in the organization? Should I just focus on one specific way, kind of an all-in-one type of solution? Should I compose multiple open source products to create this platform? It's a lot of good questions, right? And honestly, I don't think it's one very easy answer. I think it ends up being a hybrid of those things, because you're talking about an environment where most likely, if you're not a brand new startup, if you're an organization that's existed for any amount of time, you have applications that exist already someplace doing something, usually on old technology, and then you have new initiatives and new things that the business is trying to do from a technology standpoint to try and get something done. So this buy versus build conversation becomes really relevant. And how do we save time? How do we not build everything from scratch? But how do we make sure we're buying things that actually allow us to customize things the way that we want? I like a tweet by Kelsey Hightower. I'll go ahead and show it on the screen, but it was something to the tune of, he was convinced that every developer wants a platform as a service, with the one stipulation that they built it themselves. And I'll quote that and you can see how wrong I was. The thing that's interesting is that it kind of ends up being a little bit of both. You end up buying certain products, you end up building some things that are homegrown. So how do you make those decisions? Well, first I want to establish the context of like, what is a platform? And traditionally, if you Google things, right, you'll see tools that claim to be platforms as a service, and it's abbreviated PaaS, P-A-A-S. And I'll name a few of them. So like Pivotal Cloud Foundry is one, OpenShift, they kind of claim to be a platform, EKS and Fargate for Amazon Web Services, GKS, Cloud Run for Google Cloud, and then AKS, maybe the Azure Container Service probably falls into that as well. The thing that's interesting about how we speak about these things is that I wouldn't say that they're actually platforms in and of themselves. They end up being pieces of a platform for an organization. So to the people that have built these products, it seems like a platform, it seems like the all-in-one solution. All you have to do is do this thing to your app, and then it goes to this place, and oh my gosh, it's amazing. And that's not the reality of how things end up working. Every organization has its own customized things that it needs in order to remain compliant, not just to their users' experience of the software, but to legal entities, to things beyond themselves, right? So that's why I think we get to the point where we need a platform that's built internally. But just because the platform is built internally doesn't mean we can't use some of these tools to address specific pieces of the platform challenge. So as an example, right, I wouldn't buy if AWS said, or any vendor said really, hey, if you use this thing, all of your problems are going to be solved. All of your devs can do whatever they want. They just have to run this one command and it just works. That's true if you follow the exact way that platform tells you to do that thing. There are real challenges though, and real things that can happen that make it so you can't do that the way that they asked you to. I'll give you an example. My organization is adopting Pivotal Cloud Foundry. Okay, great. For what Pivotal does, it does it pretty good, but you have to fit within this very tight realm. And then you have to become an expert in Cloud Foundry from a customization standpoint. So you end up building custom things, period. And this story is not just PCF, this is literally everything that I've listed. So you end up having to become an expert in that particular thing and how to customize it, which eventually equates to building your own software on top of that software. And the juice becomes not really worth the squeeze, right? When you don't even need all of the components of that platform, you still end up having to write code to accommodate it. It's frustrating. I get it. I've been annoyed by these things in practice. One of the orgs I worked for, we had PCF, we had Kubernetes, we had AWS and GCP, and a little bit of Azure at the time. They ended up kind of standardizing around some things. All in all, it was a mess. But what we found was successful, and the approach that I've taken from there to the rest of the places I work and the customers I work with, is you have to evaluate at the problem level. What problem am I trying to solve? What tools are available to solve this problem? Of course, you weigh how much they cost, but when you're evaluating the tooling, there are critical questions that you have to ask when you're evaluating that tooling. Okay, so if I'm evaluating a tool to solve a problem like, an advanced networking type problem, there are a bunch of tools in the space. Let's just say, for example, you're on Kubernetes, but you also have VMs that are managed in your org. You also have on-premise stuff that need to be managed. If I'm in Kubernetes, my team is on Kubernetes, I may want to lean into Istio for that. That may be instinctual for me. And that's fine. That's a solution that'll work within that environment, within Kubernetes. You may want to also, though, think about how will we solve this problem holistically at a more platform level across the org. Is there an approach that we can take to solve this at a higher level than just our Kubernetes clusters? Because all of the apps that we still have, they haven't fit the barrier to entry of containerization yet. At that point, you may look at other solutions. Shameless plug, Console is one of those solutions. But when you see the problem, hey, modern microservice networking connectivity, leaning towards service mesh. How do we handle service discovery of these dynamic container-based resources that spin up and spin down, or even our VMs that we're treating more in an immutable way? How do we actually think about this problem? The tool you look at, you want to ideally be usable across multiple runtime environments. That means VMs, that means Kubernetes flavor of the week, that means any other runtime, ideally serverless, all of it, because different teams will have different uses for these particular technologies, and your platform should be able to accommodate these things one way or another. The next thing is, what is the extensibility mechanism, and what is the dependencies of the extensibility mechanism? If I need to extend this, because any tool that you adopt that you don't build yourself, you will have to extend at some point. And usually that's done via building custom tooling around the APIs, or building a custom plugin that actually works within the product to accommodate a certain feature as things are being rolled out. Those are things you have to understand. And will I just have to enhance this specific capability, for example, the modern networking capability, or will I have to also write code that accommodates all of these other use cases within this one platform? Just food for thought there. So I say all this to kind of bring it back and say, hey, if you're looking to build your platform, your organization's platform, you're already going to have a lot of tools that are there, and you want to evaluate them based on some of the things we mentioned in this video. You want to evaluate them based on their extensibility and the scope of what you need to extend to actually customize that to your solution. That translates to having a clear API that is one-to-one with any type of UI functionality, and a plugin type model for sure, bare minimum, those things. Then you would also need to think about how much money, of course, you want to spend on a given solution, what that budget is, and compare it to how much man hours you would need to invest, how much work you would have to do to actually build that capability yourself. Once you understand those things, you can start picking tools that make sense for your organization and the problems that you are solving. So they start usually around being cloud specific, or maybe we have to abstract multiple clouds. Most companies now, even though they may say, we're just AWS, we're just Azure, we're just GCP, we're just whatever, they have multi-cloud presence. And it's not by choice a lot of the time. I was at a bank, as an example. I won't say who they are, but we were like, AWS only. Right? Only AWS, we're only doing AWS. There was an email written by an important person from the top of the chain that pinged all of us, all the engineers, all the architects, and said, we are in AWS. I kid you not, within a week, we got another email from someone similar high up saying, we're acquiring this other company. And you know what the other company stack was? Azure. And you know who had to figure out how to integrate their platform? Us. Okay? It's what happens. It's a natural thing. I'm not trying to talk badly about anyone, because they had pretty good reasons as to why they wanted to commit to the platform. It's just not something that is realistic in practice. Hopefully these tips help you with evaluating the tools that kind of compose your company's internal development platform. If you'd like a video that kind of dives deeper on what those tools could be, please let me know. And really, if you have to ask yourself build versus buy, it's really going to end up being a combination of the two. Buy where it's going to save you the most time. I'll give you a clear example of this. If I'm a company that's focused on, manufacturing, right? I may want to invest time into building software that's going to specifically enhance one of these manufacturing type processes. Maybe I end up actually building that and then selling it to other companies. Who knows? What I don't want to do is build something that's going to be a random product in the industry. Like, this is a very custom way and approach of how we provision a unit of infrastructure, or how, it's almost like a company investing into writing their own programming language. Like, it just doesn't really make sense, because that doesn't differentiate you as a business, and there's already so many programming languages to choose from. That's what I'm getting at here. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about all these things. Invest your money to buy in products that are going to save you a lot of time on things that, if you built them, it wouldn't differentiate your business really. And you would just end up spending a lot of time where you didn't need to. I hope this was helpful. If you learned something, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate hearing from you all, and I hope that you all have a great rest of your day.